Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series as we finish up our season of Challenger for WCS Europe. I'm Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub. We've got a Protoss versus Zerg to bring you next. And good matches so far today, right, Jess?
Yeah, surprisingly, the better of the first two matches was the one with Cyril. He actually got brought to almost defeats. There's some pretty long, cool games.
Drogo played very well. Interested to see how that series ends up comparing to this Protoss versus Zerg as we have ShoWTimE going up against Elazer. The players are in the lobby, so we'll be starting this one soon. But this is one of those interesting matches because I think about this a little bit how I thought about Euthermal versus Lambo, where, sure, it's a great match. Both players are great, but who of these two could beat Cyril on their side of the bracket? Now, which of these two could beat Raynor, which I think would be a lot of people's expectations for who would win that match?
Yeah, I think that's like the safe call. But honestly, Raynor, as we've heard, many people say that Raynor doesn't feel unbeatable, right, when they face him. So it's not supposed to be as much of like a who gets to face this big champion like it is with Cyril, but even that is up in the air now that he's been injured by our French Protoss.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that holds up. We are loaded in the top right. We have our red Zerg player. He is Elazer.
In the bottom left, as the blue Protoss, he is ShoWTimE. The Meower.
ShoWTimE's getting a little bit more hype now. Yeah. He kind of is that guy for the European Protoss scene. People go up, people go down, but ShoWTimE is of the European Protoss. I think I speak for a good amount of people when I say he's one of the guys that consistently looks the best when we have a good Protoss.
Yeah.
But it's been not so good. The story has been all about the European Zergs for the last year and a half. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, ShoWTimE's in this weird position where, especially at the beginning of the year, there was nonstop talk about how good he was on the ladder, and it wasn't false. He would check the ladder, and he would just be amazing. But then he underperformed in the tournaments that we had, but he's back kind of up and actually convincing us, the 2 zeros in his groups, that he is the best European Protoss. And if he wins here, certainly he'll be one step closer to really cementing that title. He has played Elazer before, actually in Challenger, last Challenger. It was a 3-1 in ShoWTimE's favor. Kind of underwhelming play by Elazer, I believe. We actually both were casting that, and that's the kind of feeling we walked away with. It was that ShoWTimE played really well, sure, but Elazer also just wasn't quite playing like his usual self. So I wonder what Elazer's thinking of when he comes in here. We already had something a little interesting just because it does mimic that first PvZ series where we had the Pro Block. There we go. And to the third location.
This is a little different though, right?
Yeah, that's different.
Pylon into bottom, and I'm wondering, Proxy Robo, ooh, Stargate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to bring up the potential of the DT drop, but that's clearly out the window. ShoWTimE was showing a lot more cheesiness, honestly, and all-in-y than we would expect from ShoWTimE. We always saw him like the macro god, right? In his match against Namshar in a recent tournament, there was a ton of early aggression, and bring on a proxy Stargate, not something I would expect from ShoWTimE usually, but he is certainly mixing things up.
Yes, he is, and I like it. We've had some weird games today. A lot of cheese out of Cyril. Drogo beating him in 2 macro games. Euthermal going 14 racks Mass Reaper is certainly going to be a highlight for me personally. And now we've got ShoWTimE with the Proxy Stargate. Not as crazy as 14 racks Mass Reaper, but
yeah, the equivalent I would think of is like Mass Oracle. Remember that meta? That was great.
People do Mass Oracle occasionally, but nobody. Thermal went to 14 racks.
I mean, as soon as he did it once, people do it on ladder.
Yeah.
Ripple effect.
I think what you and Fear Dragon, whichever one of you said, you're like, well, we've just never seen it go this far. I'm like, yeah. That's how I felt. Someone's like, oh yeah, Mass Reaper, like these builds are fun because usually you win or you live or die by the sword with that build. But Oracle comes in, grabs 5 drones, 6. Okay, pretty good there. Does take a good amount of health damage, but I think 6 drones for that first opening is exactly what you want, considering that he proxied it, so he could lose his Stargate very easily.
Yeah, the funny thing about that Stargate is that sometimes if there's 2 queens at the position you're about to attack, which there were, it actually looks as lame or is ineffective as a regular Stargate opener, right? But the queens are out of position. So this is a fresh Oracle, but this time the queens are in position. And go ahead and mitigate that damage down to just 3 drones in that run by. Once they grab a ling, that's really,
that's
really
greedy.
dangerous. Yeah.
He's like, yep.
Excuse me. That lair.
2 bruised oracles.
That lair is already done. So that was like a 330 lair, wasn't it?
Noidus.
Yeah, that's what I would have expected. You know, we had a couple of ling-based Niduses in GSL earlier. So if you're one of those people that actually watched that and then this, kudos.
Ooh la la, there it is.
Yeah. Against a Resonating Glaives follow-up, by the way.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, but the Nidus room is going to hit faster. But if the Adepts aren't shaded out yet, well, there they go. Actually, never mind. So he's going for the first 6, and then the follow-up of actual Resonating Glaive Adepts.
Do you think Elazer just... I guess it really depends on what happens with where these oracles are and where he tries to drop a Nidus.
Right?
He has no vision for a Nidus.
Like, ShoWTimE has all these units that are going to go great against Lings.
Yeah, I feel like Oracle Adept is really good against Lings. Like,
but I feel like it's all about that positioning.
He doesn't have Resonating Glaives yet.
Yeah. Decent positioning there. He does save them, which is kind of important as there's a Nidus room on the way. I'm not sure ShoWTimE has seen anything to tell him that. Like, that was a high number of queens to be out and about.
He's about to get vision, by the way, for the Nidus.
There we go.
It starts in main.
He reacts instantly. He sees that. He's bringing his Adepts up. He's going to have an Immortal soon. That's so many Adepts because he didn't actually sacrifice them.
And with Glaives about to finish, I don't think this Nidus gets anything done.
This fails, right? Like, this just can't work. There was a chance when the Adept count was reset and then maybe production was camped or something, right? As much as you can camp a Protoss production, but this is just like an anti-Ling Nidus Worm composition.
Yeah. Chrono Boost the Immortal and patrol it in your main and push with the Adepts. I don't know. Or you could, do something sensible and take a 3rd base.
Either or. Yeah, I think this is... Elazer clearly is prepared to give up on this. He's going into the drones. He's adding on a Baneling Nest, but he did not have a great economy. He does not have any upgrades. And his tech with that Baneling Nest now only just finishing, no Baneling speed, is not looking that impressive. But I guess he does stop ShoWTimE from shading the Adepts across the map, right, in kind of a weird way. Like, they're not attacking each other because of the potential of surrounds and just the placement of the units.
Yep.
So Elazer does get some time to breathe, but I think it is temporary. We have a lot of gateways finishing up here for ShoWTimE.
Good revelation there. I was going to say, I almost would have liked to see him leave those drones on the north side of the mineral line and try to bait the oracles in, because he had plenty of queens there, and those oracles are very low. But the Overlord is going to die to the StarCraft towards the front. We have 3 Dropper Lords being morphed in, and Overlord's speed is being added. So it seems that the strategy here may be to do a little bit of Bane Rain onto the army if it attacks him.
Cool.
Since there's no 3rd starting up, it's a big push coming.
Yep.
A lot of Adepts with them Resonating Glaives, 7 getting added at a time here.
Gonna have to cancel that 4th. Going for the run by. There is an Adept blocking, but with that many Lings, yeah, you could force the issue. Or you could set up a flank, which would be better.
He walls off behind the Adept anyway. There's the first couple of force fields. Going to grab a few queens. The Oracles are here. And where are the Overlords with the Banelings? Very important. Needs to spread everything out. Don't clump too much against those Banes. They are coming down. Most of the Adepts are still alive. The Oracles come up to fight now too. Zerglings do hit from the back, but that Warp Prism is giving it its all at the same time.
Not bad. This has been a very interesting game with a very interesting fight. One that Elazer is going to win. I mean, all he has to wait for is reinforcements. All of those queens he built for the Nidus Worm, adding not a lot of DPS, honestly, but with the transfuses and tanking any shots, they did get to just they added whatever they could to that fight.
Saving this hatch is still, I think, yeah, I was going to say, that's a little bit outside the realm of possibility, but no, you're spot on. Doing it with the Bane Rain, really, really important, really nice. The Nidus network, by the way, still being used. The Worm's about to pop inside of the main base of ShoWTimE, and it is there. The focus is on this fight, so nothing is going through it right now, but if this gets cleaned up, we can have Zerglings spill into that main, and I don't know, ShoWTimE's just dead, right? He doesn't have a third. He doesn't have a third, he doesn't have upgrades, and Elazer has thus far held, right?
So this is like the earlier Adept attack versus Ling defense, just like times 10, right? Where one of the scariest things for the Zerg player is running out of Lings. So they might have like 8 Banelings, but a split plus only having like 20 Lings means that they actually lose the fight. And that's what I was a little worried about. Like with the Adept shading through like they just did, it initially didn't look that great, but then they took how many Lings down with them? And like 3 of them still lived. We are at a lower army once again, and ShoWTimE's going to be perhaps a little more careful not to get flanked, not to get surrounded as he split like in that first attack.
Yeah. The longer this goes,
the
harder it gets for ShoWTimE, because he will run out of money in that main base before long. That hatchery is going to get canceled again. He's got some units going towards the north side as well. And this is ShoWTimE trying to take that bit of opportunity. He's going to shade some adepts towards the main base. If those Banelings connect, though, they will surely die. So he cancels the shade. I feel like, yeah, he's going... Is he going home? Is he, though?
Is he though?
Yeah, he's adding 5 stalkers with the prism, so I guess not. Which is insane, because he doesn't have blink or anything. Random force field. Eat.
But if he keeps the Banelings off his army, then he's also keeping the Lings off his army. So the Stalkers are supposed to just be able to free fire.
Yeah, I guess the Stalkers, he's maybe thinking about focusing down Overlords if they try to drop on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are quite a few Overlords, so the Bane Rain is kind of the biggest threat. But since the Banelings have speed, then he also needs to be perfect with those force fields.
Jeez. The army supply is in favor of ShoWTimE. It's so much more explosive than it used to with the Overlord drops, if they can hit. At this point, though...
Look how many Overlords are there, too. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make it really hard for you to focus fire against this, bruh.
Yeah.
Bruh.
And it is somewhat effective. Elazer has managed to finish up +1 and is even working his way to +2 while this is happening. Here's the big attack.
Boy.
The Adept's going to get a lot of drones, perhaps, but what about the main fight? Good split. Those Banelings from the Overlords weren't actually very effective in these force fields.
Those were perfect force fields, but they do eventually end. The Immortals take a few of the hits to tank this. A lot of the Stalkers are dead, but most of the Banelings have been punched through, so big Adept weapons behind this are going to try and help finish this off. 12 drones did die in the midst of all of this, and it's just Queens and Zerglings. There are 0 Banelings out on the map right now, so ShoWTimE is just going to keep punching in those Adepts, and with that, might be able to make it happen. Just need to make sure that he can... I guess he's not going to bring the Prism up to try and do any juggling. The Queens all ran really far forward to prevent that from being a thing, too.
13 drones might have died, but ShoWTimE's only up by 6. Doesn't have that that third base. Well, Elazer does have his 4th. He goes for a couple extra drone kills, which is nice, but how much can ShoWTimE really pump out here from his 2 bases that are being mined out as we speak? That was such a close fight. Certainly that +1 melee helped, but also ShoWTimE splitting because he probably figured there were Banelings actually hurt him against those Lings. But either way, I think they were just a little too much in terms of reinforcements. And these Queens, it feels like they've lived forever, or at the very least been replaced consistently.
The energy has been really nice. Yeah, a lot of transfuses during that fight. These Lings would love to poke. They'd love to try and find something that they can do, but I'm hard-pressed to see where exactly the game goes from this position. Elazer is going to get some drones out. So far, it looks like ShoWTimE just going to chrono out a few more Immortals and go again. I think with +2 melee, this is a wash.
I think
those Lings are way too powerful now.
If there was an attack, somewhat immediately, then the issue of getting enough Lings, right, which is how much larva they have to soak up. Like it can happen, but with how long ShoWTimE's actually had to wait between these waves, every time there's been Banelings, there's been Queens, there's been 50, 60 Lings.
Yeah.
There's never that point where he catches them just a little under what he needs. ShoWTimE is not going to find success in this 3rd attack, is it? But he's going to try.
Oh, he's trying. A lot of sentries. Going to have a good amount of force fields. But at the end of the day, like we've been talking about, it's going to come a lot down to the engagement against the Zerglings. We have 50 Lings on the map, more on the way. Hydras are nice, but I really feel like it says a lot that I'm like almost ready to call this game off of just Ling Bane against a full Protoss force, because that +2 melee is so huge.
It's
not even
force fields.
It's like but the force fields are it. The force fields are the only thing that ShoWTimE has against this. And maybe he gets this base, if I don't even know that he does get this base, but he has no money behind this. His main is just about mined out. Some force fields will go down. 1 or 2 Banes squeeze their way towards the sentries, but those Zerglings absolutely rip and tear through this Protoss army once they're able to get close enough to him.
Yeah, here they come once again. And while their force fields come down, doesn't actually matter.
They're torn into pieces.
Ling's pretty good with the melee upgrade. ShoWTimE not ready to give up quite yet. This is a depth shaded past, but they are also going to be cleaned up. What a wonky game.
What a game. What a game. GG. Elazer does it, and very well done, very well held. The Oracles at the start did a ton for ShoWTimE.
Yeah.
He got out a lot of adepts, he got his resonating glaives, but at the end of the day, I think the Queens were the MVP, actually, with the way that they shoved that push back, and then the Bane Rain, and getting a Protoss who opened glaives, who does not have Blink, to build like 16, 17 Stalkers because of Baneling Rain. It's like, well, I've stopped you from Bane dropping me, but I no longer have units that you need to Bane drop because I built Stalkers instead of Adepts. So, well done. And that's a first map win for Elazer. So, strong start.
Yes. It's so weird, though, because Elazer did this Nidus Swarm attack that felt like what ShoWTimE was doing was a hard counter. And one of the only reasons he was able to survive post that was his Bane Rain. It was an excellent decision. So, all kudos to Elazer, but one of the weirdest games I've seen in this matchup in a long time. You know, we had just a lot of things that we don't see super often and all like packed into one game. So Proxy Oracles, Resident Englaive, 2 base all in, especially again from ShoWTimE, who has up until the last month been just known for macro all the time.
Yeah.
Even with some robo all-ins thrown in, sure, because that's, you know, what everyone's doing. And instead he's just throwing out curveballs left and right. And Elazer was very good at responding to every single one.
It was just game 1, but I agree. And honestly, I kind of like that. I feel like a lot of times when we see, especially non-Korean players in any sort of aggressive situation, they're very quick to fall back and be like, all right, I'll just start my third base and play from behind. But I kind of like ShoWTimE's dedication and commitment to his attack. He was like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to win or lose doing this, but I'm going to execute it as efficiently and effectively as possible. No half measures, no upgrades with this, no, oh, I'll throw it on third nexus and try to trick you. He's like, no, I'm just going to continue to make this attack, take multiple punches, and wait for you to make a mistake and crumble, which, great commitment, dedication to the build, but to me it makes what Elazer does even more impressive, because at some point as a Zerg player, you're thinking to yourself, is he going to take a third now? Is he just going to fall back? His army left, or he recalled? Like, what's the play? And it's like, no, he's just going to keep attacking you until one of you dies.
Good reads, good responses. Making up for that lack of Baneling speed with the Overlord drops was an excellent move. And then just consistent macro, too, to be able to afford Ling Baneling is usually impressive, although with that many queens, I guess it was supposed to be kind of a given. And those queens also did an excellent job denying any War Prism micro, which is kind of the talk of the town as far as Protoss power goes.
ShoWTimE's hair in that picture, by the way, is very, very interesting. He's got like a wonder how hard he blew dry it before he had that photo taken. It's quite up there a bit. Just saying.
You think he did it, or
well,
makeup artist?
I guess, yeah, it could be a makeup artist. It's one of those like funny things because sometimes, like the players, you don't want to have your face touched up too much, like on a day like that, because you want to take photos, right? We take photos at events for like the players and whatnot, so that we can have these great pictures to show you guys. We do not take these from their Facebook profiles or anything like that. But like, I guess you just wake up, you like travel across the world. Well, yeah, like it could have been taken. How long has he been on Makers?
Well,
it wouldn't have been taken at like an
so
NA event
actually
last
you
year,
can
right? So.
you can tell the time of either before or after spring, because in spring, I guess they took all new photos where they're at like a 3/4 kind of stance, and then everyone else is in the forward position. So I think that was his sideways one. I think that's the phone from Kiev.
Yeah, I was gonna say the sideways ones are a little bit new. We had the cross to arms frontal memes.
Yeah.
Which actually ended up blocking all the graphics anyway.
I wondered why they got new ones.
Made everyone look swole.
Yeah.
But yeah, my assumption was that you get out of bed, dry your hair, and then you're like, oh.
Well,
Either that or he's going for a new look, which I also respect. When you're that buff, no one can really question your personal fashion choices because everything just starts to look good.
What you're saying is like fedora and neckbeard ShoWTimE would still look pretty good.
The only reason why those styles were popular is because tall, jacked dudes in old noir films looked good wearing that. So ShoWTimE is about as close as we might get.
I'm not sure a neckbeard has ever looked particularly
Not
good,
the
but
neckbeard part, but
the fedora, sure.
yeah. When you're 6 foot tall and you've got broad shoulders and you're jacked, then a trench coat and a fedora starts to, that's the only scenario where it looks good.
Of course.
Also, everything needs to be black and white around you.
Yeah. So we just spent 2.5 minutes talking.
Hey, we made it to the mid game, so we're good.
Awesome.
And the robotics facility is coming in. Nothing happened before this point. We're good, Zombie Grub.
Yeah, nothing.
Just trying to copy my favorite friend, Tasteless.
There are some kind of neat things that I learned from watching ShoWTimE's games. He doesn't really play in a lot of tournaments. It's actually kind of hard to find his games, but he does not really use the shade like immediately out and about. As you saw, he was using it to just look around for any lings that might be stockpiled somewhere, and then otherwise keeps his probe very active, even scouting for that third base where, in the past, and many other Protoss actually just immediately bring it home. They're like, oh, the old probe, adept, and then Oracle once upon a time. But clearly we have a Robo coming out here, which ShoWTimE does want to hide. He's gone into, Adept, Stalker, Sentry, Robo. He's did this like 3 times versus Namshar, and every time he followed up with a third gas, and then, an Immortal all-in, which is not too surprising. But he does have some differences as to whether or not he gets like a ton of Immortals or opens up with a Stalker drop. So I'm wondering which one this is.
He doesn't have a whole lot of units to work with, and it's not a huge amount of gateways that he's got either. Okay, double Stargate.
Very different.
Still wondering what the Prism's going to end up doing, but okay.
I want to say that this is
bait.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. I was going to say like 1,000 IQ. Like he's shown a lot of things that show that Robo attack I was talking about, and then instead he does slap down the 2 gases, which the Overlord shouldn't be able to scout. At best, it should scout the third gas in the back, but hopefully not either one. And then he goes into double Stargate. This might keep Elazer too low on the drones if he's like really panicking about it.
I guess it really depends on what his reaction ends up being to this.
But either way, he's not expecting the double Stargate. That's that's a fact. So he's gonna have a surprise there, and we'll see how that works out. Just a couple of Adepts harassing, and not too much else shown. Elazer's gonna maybe try and sneak that Overlord through, but not before there's already like 4 or 6. I guess 4 Phoenix. That's gonna be an Overseer.
Yeah, you wanna wait to show it. The surprise factor with this is definitely nice because the worst case scenario for ShoWTimE is that Elazer sniffs this out too early and he just throws up like 2 spores per base. And now the Overseer going in, maybe he does do that. But back to what you were saying earlier, the follow-up. We have an Immortal starting to be chrono boosted out, so that very real potential here to get the aggro going, and spore crawlers are going to start being built for Elazer. ShoWTimE is running out of time to try and get some sort of element of surprise with this build. The Adepts are going to get dropped into the main, though. Evo Chamber to try and block from shading to the mineral line, and the drones are on the run for the time being.
I don't think I've ever seen an attack. If he is planning a 2-base attack off of this, that would be super surprising. Elazer's going to be droning through the damage taken here, which unfortunately is a decent amount with 7 drones going down and the Phoenix still alive. And if it was going to be a follow-up attack, I don't know how strong it would be, but it would certainly catch him while he's just droning. ShoWTimE has already added on 2 more gateways, now adding on 2 more, total of 6, and no probe has been sent out to indicate a third base. He stopped, probes at 44. Elazer is certainly keeping tabs on this, but he knows that with Stargate, if there is a 2-base attack, it's got to be later, right? Like, it's not going to be it's not comparable to the only Robo and then build a bunch of sentries and push at like 5:30 or something. So I'm still wondering what exactly ShoWTimE's going to do, but I would want to say a third base. I just don't know if a push would actually work, even though Elazer was droning a bunch.
Yeah.
And he's already droned enough, now he's building army.
Phoenix coming back over to the third base, getting a couple of more drones, and a few extra sentries being added. Somewhere in the ether I can hear Rotterdam saying, "Where's the +1 on the Phoenix?"
Well, I'm sorry, Rodney, it's not going to happen. Actually, no upgrades. This might have been a fake. I mean, he just puts a pylon down. He does
ShoWTimE being aggro today. Put
Yeah.
all the random links out on the map from Elazer too. I love it. Like just those random patrolling units, just being able to see. Yeah, that one's early. He sees everything. He knows what's coming. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee that he'll be able to hold it, but information is very important in StarCraft. Let's see what he can get done. Spore Crawler is going to try to adjust towards the front to help bully back any Phoenix, but here they come. First couple of force fields are going to start to push not really too much away, just like one or two of the Hydralisks. Most of Elazer's units are able to fight, but the 3 Immortals and that Guardian Shield, he is punching through a lot of the forces left here. The Phoenix mostly die. There's the next warp in. Now can he deal with the Zerglings? Shields are gone off of 2 of the Immortals, and the Warp Prism juggling begins.
Now, Elazer has room to breathe, but also has room to finish up those upgrades. Range being very important for those Hydras, reach over force fields usually, but they're all gone. And now +1 has finished up here. Again, Elazer with the last-second hold. Loved bringing forward the Spore Crawlers. As soon as he realized there was an attack, he tried his best to react to it, but is it actually enough? Elazer only slightly up in that supply, but the upgrade could be really big. Queen still tanking a ton, but all of their transfuses are gone. He's going to pull the drones.
Coming off the line, yeah, pulls back the weak Immortal. Ravager defeated. And with 3 of the Immortals still alive, that Prism is putting in overtime. ShoWTimE still not ahead on Workers, of course, stuck on the 2 bases against this, and it seems like it could end up being very similar to the last game if he keeps pushing and one mineral patch mines out in the main. And you say, oh, okay, get one less unit out in this next warp, and then another mineral patch mines out. And I've got, okay, one less unit even again.
This is.
It's just really hard for him to reproduce that first army that he had. Like if he had an equally big force for a follow-up attack, that's one thing. But there's no upgrades with this. It is just naked gateway units with a few Immortals mixed in.
Yeah, he's gonna try and bait maybe the Hydras down, or I don't know. He's gonna jump on top of them. Does not. But the force fields are not going to be as effective here. Is quite a lot of area to move. Maybe he could snipe the hatchery and then leave, but would that really be enough?
Yeah, I mean, the Elazer still has his upgrades, right? Like, he still has stuff for long term that's going to really help him regardless of whatever happens in this fight. There's no Forge, there's no Twilight Council. It's just the 2 Stargates and a bunch of gateways with that robotics facility. Does shade in towards where those drones are on the north side. Gets rid of a few more of the Hydras, but there's just too much here. Even with the 3 Immortals, there's just too much here for Elazer. He's not going to be able to break him. This 4th base is about to finish, and I'm not even sure. Maybe he gives this up, but he could actually push in on this with the number of Hydras he has. Yeah, and he will, so.
The Immortals don't have barrier, and there's only so many adepts to help them, but the Warp Prism juggling does keep them alive. Elazer, though, continuously producing units, now even working on the Hydra speed. Range first is a very important thing that he got, but he was definitely smart enough to get it.
One Zergling got a gateway to quarter health.
Nice. Yeah, he can round out his composition now. He's got everything he needs to play a mid-game or ShoWTimE. He's very clearly missing upgrades, third base. Just going to try and all in again and hope to get Elazer off guard, or hoping that his drone kills have been enough to keep him not producing, right? But it didn't actually get him that low. I'd say more like the count of 30 drones would be where you hope they can't produce.
ShoWTimE gets a few extra unit kills because Elazer did want to take this 4th base. I actually might get another Queen here, but 7 Ravagers just got added, and that means that the force fields ShoWTimE is so dependent on to take these engagements are going to be a lot less effective, and obviously with that range and just this general mass of units he's been able to put together, it does make things very tricky. 1 or 2 Biles landing on center mass of this army spelled doom and gloom. Yeah, I know, he just taps out, doesn't even want to take that fight. GG, Elazer goes up 2-0.
These were certainly not the games I expected. Not that ShoWTimE's build right there was... Well, rather his opener wasn't unexpected. Like, I expected some 2-base all-ins. But the way these games are going is just bizarre. The first game was weird. In the second game, ShoWTimE throwing the curviest of curveballs there with the double Stargate follow-up. I am really impressed that Elazer is responding as well as he is. Because I think one of the biggest conundrums we have that Zerg players are rightfully discussing, shall we say, is exactly when to stop droning, when to continue droning, what exactly they're up against, the misinformation, the different timings of 2-base all-ins. And that one was a real, like, okay, it's a Phoenix thing, but then you actually 2-base all me anyways. But he responded very appropriately.
Biggest thing that just like strikes me looking at this, I go back to like New Repugnancy, and Elazer's holding very well, but it's like, like sometimes you defend a cheese or an all-in, and you're like, wow, he made that build look bad. But I didn't think that ShoWTimE's build even looked bad. It's just Elazer is showing us some really, really good, tight control and decision-making to deal with that attack, because ShoWTimE's force looks really scary. His micro is really good. His force fields are great. But somehow, when the fight is over, it's like Elazer's like, no, I was able to do it. I mixed in 5 Overlords with the Dropper Lords and put 2 empty ones in there, so he couldn't focus fire down the Bane Rain in the first game. And everything just looks so good and so crisp out of Elazer. I love what I'm seeing. I'm interested to see what he has for the other matchups, because outside of if he's able to take 3-0 here, or in a longer series overcome ShoWTimE, I wonder what kind of preparation he has for the possibility of that T or Z in the next series.
Right, yeah, he still has TBD on that one. Yeah, we can't really forget that these guys have been prepping for this match in particular. This is the most important match, not just because it's first, but because it means that they get seeded in.
Top four. Top 4.
So if they can just do this, then that actually might be some people's, like, okay, I did it. See ya,
His hair, like you see.
I think it also helps that whoever probably photoshopped it a little bit, got rid of any like sticking hairs out.
Maybe gives me there's a Street Fighter character or someone with hair like that. I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of anime characters.
Yeah.
With hair exactly like that. But anyways, one last thing about the general state of these games is that I do kind of feel like Elazer is either he's just playing brilliantly out of his mind, which I'm going to go with that, but just as a maybe. I feel like he also is maybe being if it's 1 minute earlier or sooner or later, that he actually is playing it incorrectly, right? So if that build had attacked a minute earlier, it would have still been a huge shock to him that it was actually an attack. He was droning up till 60, right?
Yeah.
But in that game, with what ShoWTimE actually ended up doing, it was the perfect amount. It gave him enough production to last through the multiple attacks. But certainly, I think he's just playing really, really well. And certainly, I think his last second responses are right on point. The Banelings drops, and then in that last game, the Spore Crawlers maneuvering forward were critical.
All the Phoenix in that frontal assault died really fast. And on one hand, I'm like, well, yeah, the Phoenix are going to come in here and take a lot of the Queen hits so that the rest of the army can fight. But at the end of the day, did not end up being as impactful, especially because the Spore repositioning. And even still, getting that Overseer in to see the double Stargate right as the Phoenix were ready to go across the map is another thing, because there were only 2 out when the Stargates were spotted. And yes, number 3 and 4 were coming out, but if you blindside somebody with 6, it's not just about, oh, do they have Spore Crawlers? Because obviously it takes time to build those. But as a Zerg player, generally, you're going to try and reposition the Queens to the base that you think is going to be attacked, right? Whatever your Overlord sees on the map or your Zergling sees. So just having that extra couple of seconds to make sure that there's 6 Queens that their Phoenix are flying into and not 1 or 2, because they'll just kill those, is another really big, important part of defending against those types of strategies.
So you also reminded me of something really important that happened there. If you think that ShoWTimE was doing his Immortal all-in build, delaying or just simply not even getting your lair is actually a nice little boost to your defense against it. Literally, there was a game where Zerg got a lair, couldn't defeat it, and then didn't get a lair and could defeat it. It was that stark of a difference. And Elazer actually getting that lair and having that Overseer at a really good time was probably something that ShoWTimE was hoping wouldn't be the case. It's 30 seconds later, or it just never appears, because he's making Elazer worry about these potential really quick all-ins. But
comes back to what you were talking about too, with him getting the range upgrade very quickly on the Hydralisks.
Yeah, that was
being able to get Hydralisks, period, right, that early to defend against that attack. Because that's the thing in ZVP that Doesn't get touched on too much these days, but with a lot of these early attacks, it's like, yes, you want to get Hydras out, but they're expensive. They are bad without the upgrades.
Yeah.
They're really not that good. But being able to stall out that fight and get the +1 missile attacks is huge. Getting the Hydralisk range is, it's like, you need it, but it's nice to, you confirm that you do have it.
Mm-hmm. The last thing about the last game was just, I think it is really cool that the Phoenix did contribute to the all-in quite heavily, which, again, we just don't usually see. And we're not seeing here. I guess to segue back into this game, it's been 4 minutes. Not much has happened, but the scout on the Stargate obviously happened. The Phoenix killing the Overlord. Spore Crawlers are being prepared. And double gas in the natural for ShoWTimE already. We're headed towards at least a later game.
Yeah. He wants to build multiple oracles, so I guess the 3rd and 4th gas this quick makes a little bit of sense to get the Twilight Council and the Robo up behind multiple oracles. Whether he gets the 3rd one or not, I think it's interesting, because 3 is pretty solid stopping point. And he chronoed it right when it finished, so yeah, he was 3 oracles. You can, of course, go for more. If he doesn't start a Twilight soon, I'm going to start asking questions, though, because is this just going to be another big robotics facility-based attack? He has not been getting many Twilight Councils or Forges so far today, unless he's resonating Gleaves all inning you.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen a Forge yet.
We have not. There it is.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, he is finally playing that macro game. It's King's Cove, right, which is kind of alongside Thunderbird, just one of our best macro defense maps with that kind of high ground situation going for your first 3 bases. And the 4th really not being that far of a jump over as well. So I'm glad to see it. He is down 0-2, and while he has been doing a decent amount of those more aggressive builds, I would still say that what we know him and love him for is his macro, and he's prepared to show it here. 3 oracles skirting on past are going to head towards that main. Queen and Spore Crawler are prepared, but you would probably lose at least 1 oracle if he tried diving in, and he's just not even going to try.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, a play that's not uncommon to see, right? Phoenix goes in first, tries to tank the shots. Looks like the Spore Crawler was focus fired onto the oracles, though. Very nicely done, and he will kill one of them.
Okay.
His trouble. So, gets the 2nd oracle pretty quick, too, and that one had a lot of energy on it. That's... still got a lot of drones. Charge is on the way and +1 attack.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is Zombie Grub, no Templar Archives or Dark Shrine. So this isn't like any sort of like Archon drop follow-up, but more importantly, it's not going for Fast Storm or anything of that kind. Okay, he queues up the Templar Archives now. I guess the Hydralisk definitely just started, so it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think we're just so used to seeing the Archon drop.
Yeah, I'm also traumatized by ShoWTimE's builds in the first 2 maps, where I'm like, all right, which part of this becomes the all-in? Where's the all-in?
Yeah, for sure.
At what point does this turn into an all-in?
Yeah. Well, I think he'll be okay with how those oracles, panned out. Losing 2 instead of just the 1 is probably not the plan, but even getting some more damage done here, and he will be continuing to bother Elazer with these stasis traps in the main base, so not just doing harassment and keeping Elazer a little lower on that drone count than maybe he would have wanted, although he's back up to 72, so. But also keeping tabs on what Elazer's doing. Is he attacking me, or do I just macro? And that's what he's got to do. He's just going to macro. Eventually add on that Storm, but he is delaying his 3rd base gases a little bit. He didn't take his... There we go. Okay. So we will eventually see that, but maybe some maneuvering out in the map just to clear up some of these lings, since he knows that Elazer is certainly not the one moving out. Elazer is just completing that 4th base and getting up the lurkers.
Shout out to Elazer's map vision, though. The random lings you just talking about, been everywhere on the patrol, like we saw in Cyber Forest. He's just had a really good amount of vision and map awareness. No Storm, he's just added a bunch of Archons to this. So with the Prism coming out, we're going to see a bit of an attack. And he's going into lurkers, but there's no Baneling Nest. So a lot of Zealots, since he does have +1 attack and charge with this army, could do very well, Zombie Grub. This is a big moment for ShoWTimE, because if with this attack, if this flops on its face, well, he's out.
I mean, if he saw enough Zerg army, he could try and retreat and just get in the Storm, but he sees something that he likes. He's going to go in for it, despite the huge concave that King's Cove allows. He's going to go for it. He's got that +1. The Immortal's still alive here, but the charge outs have run out. Same for the Adepts, and this was
Nowhere
a mistake.
near enough Zealots, yeah, and getting completely surrounded. He does have the third base, but losing a ton on the tail end of this. The Immortals running for their lives, trying to get out of here. There's the Prism, though. Adds around a Zealot, says, all right, you want to fight me off creep? Elazer says, no, I don't need to do that.
That's just a hard position to move into. You know, at King's Cove, that fourth base, especially on the Zerg side where they also have that creep, the concave that Elazer had gotten was so good. And then he did have enough time to both cap his economy at a good place and then also get a decent army. So ShoWTimE's perhaps timing was not what he was hoping for, and the positioning was just not good enough. And he's kind of lucky to have survived, but gotta go ASAP into the double Immortal production, gotta be prepared for lurkers, gotta buy time with this Warp Prism, which hopefully he does. Elazer's not moving out right now, but he's also not prepared to move out. If he can take care of this, God forbid he kills this Warp Prism, because then I think that's the trigger. Then he just contains ShoWTimE.
No, you get rid of the Prism in this situation. You punch the gun full speed ahead, but getting out the lurkers very important. And like you were saying, double Immortal production is going. And now the fourth base starts with ShoWTimE. So this is actually the best scenario. Is like Elazer's can kind of wait for the Protoss to step out from that shell, right? Because King's Cove is such a good defensive map, but also can posture here on the natural. Cybernetics core and one of the gateways very exposed. And coming in to fight against this is always risky. Hey, the Immortals are just going to walk straight up, take a hit, but don't actually get through any of the lurkers just yet. And ShoWTimE takes a little bit of beating there on his army and not much to show for it.
Yeah, the shields are now all gone on the Immortals, which makes them very ineffective against these lurkers. He's looking for storms, you know, now trying to kind of patiently work at that, but he's got to be very careful. He can't let him up the ramp, but he can't push this away either.
Those Lings get he's got the barrier triggered on that Immortal. I mean, ShoWTimE is holding so far, but this is a very delicate position. He's just one misstep away from death. But all these Hydras are just going to say, okay, let's commit to the natural. Then the lurkers have zoned everything away. A lot of Zealots are going to charge in, and those Hydras are looking pretty squishy, but the lurker support, yeah, that's the hardest part. So losing one of the robotics facilities would be huge, because that was also trying to get the Observer for some more dedicated detection. Good Oracle Revelation. ShoWTimE's going to try and do something here, but he just doesn't have enough anymore, Zombie Grub.
No, he doesn't. If there had been one storm on that high ground of the natural plus those Zealots, I think it's a very different game. It's the start of a comeback, but losing all of that supply like he did, I don't think it necessarily matters that he has a fourth base up, even though his economy is still untouched.
Elazer played so well in this series.
Yeah,
he really crushed it. I don't think ShoWTimE can do anything here. He's got 1,500 gas. He's not even warping units in anymore.
Yeah, he could be trying to stack up storms or even just go mass Archon, but I thought, yeah, that is it. GG.
Elazer takes the 3-0 and will move on to the top 4 for WCS Europe Challenger Edition. Just very well done. That's really all I have to say. Elazer just played very well. Great control, phenomenal engagements, and that whole last game can be summed up by what you were saying. Just a beautiful giant concave on creep. Yeah, no, ShoWTimE got dunked on.
He did. This entire day has been kind of weird from the get-go, and then not just this 3-0 showing here, which is a surprise to me, but just the games themselves were they were interesting, they were close, but they were mostly just highlighting how good Elazer is. The macro in that last game was really good, but especially those first two games where he had to respond to such weirdness was really impressive.
Very, very well played by Elazer. He moves on to face the winner of our next match. Let's take a look at the schedule. We do have one more quarterfinal to bring you here for Europe Challenger. Then we'll be moving into our semis. It's going to be a Terran versus Zerg. Very exciting series coming up. Don't miss it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Raynor versus Marine Lord after the break.